Chair stands corrected. Now, Chair would like to entertain speaker to speak for the moderated caucus with 60 seconds on formulation of separate committee. Are there any in the House? Please raise your hand. Delegate of ROK, you have been recognized.
This delegate believes that formation of a separate committee to reduce the negative environmental impacts of the Olympic Games is necessary. The Republic of Korea believes that the best way to form this committee is to form a separate committee under the UNEP, and the committee's power will be based on the MOU formed between the UN and the International Olympic Committee. This committee will focus on not only the pre-impact of the Olympic Games, but the post-environmental impact of the Olympic Games, and have a say in where and how to construct venues, and also focus on the issue of greenwashing. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The Chair would like to entertain another speaker to speak for the moderated caucus. Delegate of Sweden, you have been recognized.
This delegate also agrees with the delegate of Republic of Korea that there is a need for a separate committee that oversees the post-game procedures. So this delegate would also like to suggest another method that this kind of committee can be created. So there could be a measure to make the post-game monitoring in cooperation with the National Olympic Committee and third-party organizations such as the World Union of Olympic Cities. So there could be other ways, not only utilizing the UNEP committees under the UNEP, but also utilizing the Olympic-involved bodies to oversee the post-game monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The Chair would like to entertain Delegate of South Africa. You have 60 seconds.
This delegation believes that the committee also needs to focus on the research before the construction, because this delegation acknowledges that many delegates were concerned about the idea of environmental pollution during the process of construction. And if this organization could help build the same country through research on methods that could make the construction in a better way, as well as to kind of estimate how much damage will be caused to the local environment through research, stadiums, and infrastructure, it would be a lot more beneficial for the local environment.
Thank you, Delegate. The Chair would like to entertain the next speaker.
Sweden said. And the delegate of USA would like to remark upon that creating a government institute corporation that promotes government environmental concerns for the Olympics would be highly effective rather than building a institution under the IOC and standard, as the rebuilding and construction of the infrastructures and that concerning the actual of the Olympic shifts and the workout is one where the government is the IOC isn't involved in the aftermath or the feeling of the Olympic infrastructure after the Olympic finish. Therefore, the delegate of the USA wants to argue that the delegate promotes a government institute that promotes such acts upon solving such problem.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegates, please lower your hand. The Chair would like to entertain next speaker. Please raise your hand. Delegate of United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. When it comes to forming a new committee or a new program, since this is debate in the UNEP committee, it may be a little bit difficult or less feasible to request the nations or the IOC to form a new program. Rather, it is a lot more realistic to consider a new committee if needed regarding all those environmental impacts within the UNEP, because UNEP is specialized in that aspect, and also it has been monitoring various countries on their environmental impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker. Please raise your hand. Delegate of Mexico, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chairs. So this delegate of Mexico would like to express the concern that there needs a discussion about whether this new typical community would take a role of supporting the hosting city of Olympics in the process of preparing the hosting of the Olympics. If that committee is going to just completely support the city to hold a carbon offset project or invest in more sustainable water supplies or organize transportation for spectators and source sustainable materials, those kind of things. Or if that committee would take a role of creating a check and balances and so that that committee would provide a strict and strong regulating standards of that hosting city to meet and in order to preserve the environment while having Olympic Games in that city, and also even after the Olympic game ends, if that committee is going to keep monitoring the city and how that city is cleaning and
Closing remark.
yeah, okay.
Oh, so when chair says, delegate, please come to your closing remark, doesn't necessarily mean you have to end right there, but to just come to your closing remark, literally. 체어가 만약에 1분 이상이 넘어가면 delegate, please come to your closing remark라는 말을 할 건데 그 즉시 바로 중단하라는 의미는 아니고 이제 마무리를 지어라라는 의미로 받아주셨으면 합니다. With that being clear, the chair would like to entertain next speaker for the moderated caucus. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Thailand, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. During the moderated caucus session, Delegate of Thailand discussed about making a new department, not committee, about sustainable Olympic with Delegate of Japan, Brazil, Kenya, and friends. So Delegate of, if it is necessary to make a new committee for sustainable Olympics, Delegate of Thailand suggests the other delegates to make suitable functions of the committee, like creating a stating the country of origin to prevent greenwashing, and recommending the use of eco-friendly materials, and also low carbon transportations for electric planes and zero emissions. So Delegate of Thailand suggests the other delegates to clarify the suitable functions of the new committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak up. Delegate of Switzerland, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. To reduce the environment impact, this delegate insists it is better to hold the Olympics by voting only among countries that have already hosted the Olympics. That is, countries that have the condition to host the Olympics. Many countries have already given up hosting the Olympics due to environmental degradation and financial burdens. This delegate's country, Switzerland, a candidate site for the 2026 Winter Olympics, had decided to abandon the bid because of the finance burden. A number of countries are giving up their bid application because of their opposition to the Olympics. It's in response, the International Olympic Committee, IOC, announced the Olympic agenda 2020 and prepare the plan to reduce the financial and environmental burden of host countries. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak up. Delegate of South Africa, you have been recognized.
This delegate understands the concern of Delegate of Switzerland that she wants the countries to reuse their infrastructure that is already made in that country. But I disagree to the delegate's idea that we should limit the countries to host the Olympics to the countries that have already hosted the Olympics once, because we also need to consider the spirit of the Olympics, which is an international sports game. And even though we say that most countries have gave up hosting the Olympics, it does not actually give us a justification of limiting the hosting countries into the countries that have already hosted the Olympic Games. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak up. Delegate of Sweden, you have been recognized.
The delegate also agrees with Republic of South Africa that limiting the hosting countries to only those who have hosted once is also a bad idea, since there has been a recent decline in the demand of being a hosting country, since many countries believe that hosting the Olympics does not give the countries a very big gain in their country status. Thus, the delegate believes that rather than placing the limitations on the hosting cities, there should be more support. There should be more supportive actions, such as funding for the hosting cities to create a more sustainable environment for the Olympic Games.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegates, please lower your hand. Next, Chair would like to call upon the next speaker to speak up for the moderated caucus. Please raise your hand. Delegate of Chile, you have been recognized.
전 한국어로 진행하겠습니다. 스위스의 발언에 관해서, 스위스 대사님의 발언에 관해서 이미 올림픽을 개최했던 국가들 한정 올림픽을 개최하는 것에 대해서는 반대합니다만, 만약 환경에 관련된 조약이 생길 경우에는 그 조약에 동의하여 환경 친화적인 올림픽을 열기로 서약한 국가들에게 우선적인 올림픽 개최 기회를 주는 것은 고려해 볼 만하다고 생각하며, 그러한 조례를 만든다면 올림픽 진행 중에 에너지 사용 방식에 중점을 둘 것인지, 올림픽 개최 전 경기 환경 조성에 중점을 둘 것인지에 관한 논의 또한 꼭 필요하다고 생각합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to call upon the next speaker to speak up for the moderated caucus. Please raise your hand. Delegate of UK, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. This delegate highly agrees with the delegate of Chile when it comes to selecting the host cities. They should take into consideration on any environmental policies that the city or the country have taken, or any plans in the future that the country will have when hosting and planning and actually constructing the Olympic Games. So the formation of a new committee or a new department or whatsoever in the UNEP should collaborate with the IOC when it comes to selecting the environmentally sustainable host city for the Olympic Games. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to call upon the next speaker to speak up for the moderated caucus. Delegate of ROK, you have been recognized.
This delegate would like to make 2 points. The first point relating back to the delegate of the USA, who said that there needs to be a government institute and cooperation. Well, this delegate agrees with the delegate of the UK who spoke after, who told us that it's difficult to make a new government program and we should make a committee under the UNEP. However, this delegate partly agrees with the delegate of the USA in the aspect that government cooperation is necessary in the process of reducing the environmental impacts of the Olympic Games. And therefore, this delegate would like to raise the discussion of how to induce countries induce the government's interest, the host city's interest in the environmental aspects of the Olympic Games. And second, relating to the delegation of Switzerland, who told us that Olympics should be, the host cities of the Olympics should be limited to past host cities. This delegation would like to point out in 1988, the Seoul Olympic Games was a chance for huge economic success in the Republic of Korea, and therefore would like this delegation to partly consider and would like to make the argument that even though environmental issues of the Olympic Games are important, we also must consider in some part the economic issues in a degree that does not cause detrimental harm to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Just for the announcement, delegates feel free to use private message for note passing between delegate and delegate. So can everybody use, or does anybody have problem using direct message or private message in Zoom? If you have any technical difficulties regarding using the private chat, please notify the chair member or the staff member, actually. 이제 줌에 보시면 개인 채팅 기능이 있는데 그 개인 채팅을 통해서 델리게이트끼리 계속 개인적인 대화를 이어나가셔도 괜찮습니다. 물론 의자에 관련한 개인적인 대화를 말하는 거겠죠. 만약에 그리고 개인 채팅을 사용하는 방법을 모르시거나 아니면 혹시 문제가 있다면 저희 스태프 멤버에게 알려주시면 감사하겠습니다. With that being said, the chair would like to call upon the next delegate to speak up. Please raise your hand. Delegate of Thailand, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Delegate of Thailand strongly agrees with Delegate of Chile to conduct the environmental treaty, and to add more, when evaluating host cities in the Sustainable Olympic Department, it is more appropriate to give additional points if the countries already have eco-friendly transportation or eco-friendly elements. So Delegate of Thailand highly recommends the other delegations to focus on already ongoing campaign by IOC, which is Sports for Climate Action. So it is much more effective to make a new committee or conduct a new business. And there are already a campaign by IOC called Sports for Climate Action, and this is for reducing the carbon dioxide rates during the Olympic host cities. So, lastly, Delegate of Thailand highly recommends the delegates to focus on already ongoing event like Sports for Climate Action. So, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to call upon next delegate to speak. Delegate of South Africa, you have been recognized.
So the delegate of Republic of Korea mentioned that she wants a discussion related to how we're going to motivate the governments to participate on an environmental friendly project. Because there are not a lot of countries that are willing to host the Olympics right now, this delegate thought that rather than providing a punishment to the hosting countries when they don't follow these kind of environmental projects, it would be rather better if we provide a certain incentive for these governments to follow the environmental suggestions provided by the committee or the agenda. So, for example, we could raise funds for countries that are hosting the Olympics to utilize that money in order to prepare green technology or green facilities. I think that this was also mentioned in the position speech of the delegate of Japan. And I think these kind of methods of providing incentives will be beneficial for luring more countries to participate in green actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain one last speaker for the moderated caucus. Delegate of Sweden, you have been recognized.
This delegate believes that there shall be further discussions about how to incentivize these countries to follow the environmentally friendly measures, since there are numerous previous examples that the nations could follow. So the nations already know the methods how to get to these kind of environmentally friendly purposes, but they do not have the right incentive to follow this, since this is not economically beneficial for those countries. So this delegate believes that in the further moderated caucuses, there shall be discussions about how to incentivize these cities rather than like the specific measures of promoting the environmental sustainability construction or whatnot.
Thank you, Delegate. Since this is 3:27 p.m., the time for the moderated caucus for 20 minutes is now elapsed. Now, floor is once again open. Are there any motions on the floor? Again, are there any motions on the floor? Delegate of ROK, you have been recognized.
Motion to move into a moderated caucus of 10 minutes, individual speaking time 60 seconds, on whether incentive or punishment is more effective for countries to participate in reducing negative environmental effects.
That is in order. There has been a motion to move to moderated caucus for 10 minutes in total, with 60 seconds of individual speaking time. With that being said, the committee will move on to the voting procedure on the motion to move to the moderated caucus. All those who are wishing to move to moderated caucus, please press raise hand button. All those who are wishing to vote against this motion, please raise your hand. With 7 delegates votes for, 8 delegates against, the motion to move to moderated caucus fails. Now floor is once again open. Are there any motions on the floor? Delegate of Silent, you have been recognized.
Thank you. Motion to move into the unmoderated caucus for 15 minutes.
There has been a motion to move to the unmoderated caucus for 15 minutes. With that being said, the committee will have a voting procedure on motion to move to unmoderated caucus. All those who are wishing to vote for this motion, please raise your hand. All those who are wishing to vote against, please raise your hand. With 10 votes for, 7 against, the motion to move to unmoderated caucus for 15 minutes is passed. The committee will have a unmoderated caucus until 3:46 p.m., which is exactly 15 minutes. And just like what we did in the past, please move into the Metaverse platform for our unmoderated caucus. And delegates, it's just an announcement. During unmoderated caucus, Chair would like to highly encourage delegates to start writing resolution on the document, shared document.
네, 이동을 하셔서 이제 블록을 어느 정도 형성을 하시고 레졸루션 작성을 시작해 주시면 될 것 같습니다. 레졸루션 작성과 같은 경우에는
구글 독스를 파셔서 거기 상담실 내에서 채팅을 하시면 그 상담실 안에 있는 사람들끼리만 채팅이 공유가 되거든요. 그렇기 때문에 그 안에서 구글 독스를 파셔서 이제 링크를 서로 공유하셔서 거기에 들어가서 말씀을 나누시면서 레소루션을 작성해 주시면 될 것 같습니다. 그리고 독스를 블로그 형성을 하시고 독스를 파신 경우에는 저희 의장 2명 중에 1명에게 오셔서 그 독스를 팠다고 말씀을 해주시면 될 것 같아요. 그리고 독스 공유를 해주시면 될 것 같습니다. 네. 이동해서 아까 전처럼 자유롭게 말씀 나눠주시면 됩니다.
Nine. You have been recognized. Is that a hand for moderated caucus? Or, all right, the chair stands corrected. Again, chair would like to entertain speakers to speak at this moment for the moderated caucus. Delegate of UK, you have been recognized. You have 60 seconds to speak.
Thank you, Chair. The majority of carbon emissions that are being projected to the atmosphere come from thousands of athletes flying to the host city. And as the delegate have researched, there were close to no possible solutions to solve this problem. So it would be best to first entertain on any possible solutions regarding carbon dioxide emissions on air transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak at this moment. Delegate of Sweden, you have been recognized.
This delegate also agrees with the delegate of UK that there is no real, close to no possible solutions for this kind of problem. So this delegate would like to also suggest the method of purchasing carbon credits, which the Tokyo Games also have implemented, since it could offset its carbon footprint by purchasing the carbon credits which finance the local projects aimed at reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. So this offsetting carbon credits was equivalent to around 4.338 million tons of CO2. This delegate believes that since the Olympic Games requires athletes to gather around in one place, there needs to be another solution another plausible solution that could compensate for this carbon emission.
Thank you, delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak at this moment. Delegate of South Africa, you have been recognized.
So a lot of delegates mentioned the aspect of transportation. This is also an immense issue, but I also want to emphasize the point that the hosting nations actually use immense amount of electricity during the event. So there should be a form of technology benchmarking or technology transfer from a developed country to developing country through green technology and green energy. This delegate also wants to emphasize that since the IOC is already performing several efforts to lessen the carbon emission itself, that opening another fundraising to support the continuing effort of IOC is also important, because since it is better to enhance the continued effort instead of starting a whole new project.
Thank you, delegate. The chair would like to entertain another speaker to speak up for the moderated caucus. Delegate of Republic of Korea, you have been recognized.
This delegate agrees with the previous delegates that transportation is a key issue in carbon emissions. And this delegate also agrees with the delegate of South Africa that usage of electricity is also a big part. This delegate would like to point out of one of the continuing efforts that the Republic of Korea has done, and that is to create new venues for wind power before the Olympics. This can be an example for other countries to see, because in some cases the Olympics and the IOC's efforts are actually a turning point for some countries to go green. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. The chair would like to entertain another speaker to speak up for this moderated caucus. Delegate of Netherlands, you have been recognized.
Thank you. The delegate of Netherlands would like to propose raising a fund to support eco-friendly transportations, providing eco-friendly materials, and constructing and help providing green tech energy, as the delegate of Republic of South Africa has said.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain another speaker to speak up at this moment. Delegate of Thailand, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'm delegate of Thailand really appreciate UK, Sweden, Republic of South Korea, and especially for Netherlands for mentioning about funds to increase noble transportation, which has really low carbon dioxide emission. So recently, new transportations with low carbon emissions have begun to emerge. So the Delegate of Thailand would like to propose a system that gives additional points to countries or cities where low carbon emission transportation such as electric airplanes, zero gas buses, and electric vehicles with significantly low carbon emissions is already active. So in conclusion, Delegate of Thailand would like to suggest the member states to encourage the usage of novel transportation which has really low carbon dioxide emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak up for the moderated caucus. Delegate of UK, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Because the most of the carbon emissions come from air transportation, there must be utilizing sustainable energy, as the Republic of South Africa had said, and that is where this delegate thinks the UNEP's role comes in. Instead of adhering to the wind power system, as the Republic of Korea had mentioned, maybe consulting the host city's situation and introducing a feasible measure on any sustainable energy such as solar power or wind power or any other solutions depending on this country's situation would be a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak up at this moment. Delegate of Sweden, you have been recognized.
This delegate would like to point on some games that the delegates could benchmark for reducing the CO2 emissions. Since the Sydney Games utilize these free travel on trains and buses when heading to and from the games, so that the CO2 emission from individual cars could be reduced. And furthermore, in the Sydney Games, the power stations of solar panels were also installed in the athlete villages. So this could go with the method that the United Kingdom have suggested for a new method of energy generation. So this delegate believes that benchmarking the previous games that created less CO2 emissions compared to these days Olympic Games could be a great measure to reduce the CO2 emission.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain next speaker to speak up for the moderated caucus. Delegate of Mexico, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So this delegate of Mexico would like to ask other delegates' opinion about because many delegates have been keep mentioning about the fund and raising the budgets for the eco-friendly Olympic Games and all the process of constructing the facilities and Olympic Games itself. So how this delegate of Mexico would like to ask the details of the fund and the idea of that fundraising. So how much is expected to be raised and what kind of countries are expected to participate in that fundraising, or how this fundraising would be advertised and how to appeal to the other countries to passionately participate in this kind of eco-friendly Olympic Games. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Now, I'd sure like to entertain one last speaker to speak up for the moderated caucus. Delegates, please raise your hand. Delegate of ROK, you have been recognized.
This delegate thanks the delegate of Mexico for asking the question about the fund and the budget. This delegate would also like to point out question the fund itself. For the Olympics are not actually a mandatory event, and the city actually says that, yes, we want to host the Olympic Games. This delegate believes that the environmental responsibilities that come with hosting the Olympic Games should be the responsibility of the city, and any city which wants to host the Olympic Games should take on the responsibility of having an eco-friendly system, like as a good member of the global society. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Now, time for the moderated caucus is now elapsed. The floor is once again open. Before entertaining any motions, the chair would like to yield his chairing duty to our chair, Ho Chun Park, to proceed with the next chairing.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Yun. Now the floor is open. Are there any motions on the floor? Yes, Delegate of Sweden, you have been recognized.
Motion to move into moderated caucus for the total duration of 10 minutes, individual speaking time 60 seconds, to debate upon the issue of funding the environmentally sustainable measures.
Yes, that is in order. There has been a motion to move into a moderated caucus. All those who are wishing to vote for this motion, please press the raise hand button. All those who are wishing to vote against this motion, please press raise hand button. With 15 votes for and 6 against, this motion passes, and the committee will enter the moderated caucus for 10 minutes, for 60 minutes with 10 minutes with individual speaking time of 60 seconds. Now the floor is open. Delegate. The chair would like to entertain the delegate to speak for the moderated caucus. Yes, Delegate of United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. The delegate of United Kingdom completely agrees with the Republic of Korea's stance that it is the host city's responsibility as it plans and carries out the plans for hosting the Olympics, and funds for those Olympic cities would be unnecessary because the countries that have decided to actually go for the candidate for hosting the Olympic Games would have considered the disadvantages and the economic burdens that can be taken with the environmentally sustainable Olympic Games. Therefore, it is more important to consider for the IOC to decide on the host city with regards to any future plans that have been taken or have been suggested by the candidate of the host cities. Thank you.
Delegate, the chair would like to entertain another delegate. Are there any delegate who would like to? Yes, delegate of Netherlands, you have recognized.
Thank you, Chair. The delegate of Netherlands believe the fund is a good way to induce Olympic hosting countries to voluntarily participate in protecting the environment. And also, the delegate asked the countries who have hosted the Olympics to participate more voluntarily onto this fund, since some countries might not afford enough technology or economical environment to open the Olympics. This might be the chance of giving less chance to those developing countries, and the delegate believes that this fund might help us developing countries to open the Olympic Games and also being eco-friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. The chair would like to entertain another delegate. Yes, delegate of Republic of South Africa.
This delegate believes that the international community having lead of the fundraising would be very effective. So UNEP or other UN sub-organizations can benchmark the fund form of UNICEF, such as how UNICEF kind of leads fundraising for unprivileged people in Africa. But this delegate also believes that the countries can motivate NGOs such as Greenpeace in order to raise funds and in order to advertise funds for the environment in the exclusive aspect of the Olympics, because these kind of major NGOs have lots of public attention as well as the power to advertise globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Now the chair would like to entertain another delegate. Next, Delegate of Mexico.
Thank you, Chair. So this delegate of Mexico would like to suggest the idea that only the country that wishes to hold Olympic Games but at the same time doesn't have the appropriate infrastructure ready for the Olympic Games can ask the fund and the support of that fund. So this delegate of Mexico wants to suggest that limiting the countries that can support it by that fundraising and by the budgets that is collected by that fundraising to those countries who don't have the appropriate facilities yet, and so that in order to host the Olympic Games and that is especially environmentally sustainable, that has to make another come up with new systems and come up with new revenues and values and everything. So only those countries can ask for help to those funds. And I think and this delegate of Mexico think that way it would be more appealing to those who are going to provide the budget and who are going to participate in the fundraising would be more willing to provide that money for the environmentally sustainable Olympic Games.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair now would like to entertain another delegate. Yes, Delegate of Sweden.
The delegate believes that although there may be some delegates believing that the funds are unnecessary, since the cities were the ones who were aware of the fact that they needed a huge amount of money, the delegate believes that the astronomical amount of money required for hosting the Olympic Games does not change, and thus there needs some kind of support for these kind of cities. Therefore, the delegate would like to also suggest the participation from the corporations, since there is a program called TOP, the Olympic Partners Program, that makes the corporations to participate in these Olympics to fund and to support the Olympic Games. So the delegate believes that when these kind of corporations also participate in these funds, then the feasibility of the funds would be increased, and the concerns of the delegates about the feasibility could also be resolved by this method.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would like to entertain another delegate to speak for this moderated caucus. Yes, Delegate of United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. This delegate understands other delegates' concerns about raising a fund and actually positive aspects of raising a fund. And this delegate would like to question other delegates about how to incentivize and how to motivate the nations or the corporates to actually fund or donate the money to the funds, because that aspect would be a very difficult process when it comes to actually having motivation to donate to the fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would now like to entertain another delegate. Yes, Delegate of Sweden.
The United Kingdom has talked about the need for the discussion of the method of incentivizing these entities, and the delegate believes that in the cases of corporations, the IOC could grant more rights to the local companies when it comes to donating to these funds. So this means that when a certain company donates to these funds that contribute to countries that lacks proper infrastructure for environmentally friendly measures, then the corporations could gain more rights in the region, in being the regional sponsors. Since in the status quo, the regional sponsors do not have a full right over the advertisement and whatnot. So therefore, if we grant more right, if the countries are able to ask the IOC to grant more rights to these regional companies, then those corporations would also be more willing to donate to these kind of funds.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair would now like to entertain another delegate. The delegate of Talent, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for the delegate of Sweden to mention about corporations. And to add on more, the delegate of Talent would like to introduce an already ongoing bond called Green Bond. This is a specific this is really specific past case for fundraising for eco-friendly purposes. So the green bond is special purpose bonds issued for financing eco-friendly products. So although the issuance price and place for use are limited only to eco-friendly businesses, it is possible to issue them like general bonds. So used for renewable energy efficiency technology, and climate change purposes. Like this kind of businesses, these green bonds are capable to use. So global interest in green bonds voluntarily increases in response to climate change. So there are already a lot of funds and bonds to increase eco-friendly businesses. So the delegate of Talent would like to ask and subject for the other delegations to focus on the previous or present funds or bonds. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Delegate. Now the time for the moderated caucus has been elapsed. The floor is now open. Is there any delegate who would like to introduce the motion? Yes, delegate of United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
Motion to move into unmoderated caucus for the duration of 20 minutes.
That is in order. There has been a motion to move into an unmoderated caucus. All those who are wishing to vote for this motion, please press the raise hand button. All those who are wishing to vote against this motion, please press the raise hand button. With 17 delegates voting for and 3 delegates voting against, this motion has passed, and this motion passes, and the committee will now enter the unmoderated caucus for 20 minutes. Again, we would like to suggest the delegates to move into the Metaverse platform. And once again, please check the private chat, since the delegates would like to send some opinions or such things like that by the private chat. 채팅 한 번씩 꼭 확인해 주시길 바라고요. 그리고 다시 한번 메타버스로 이동하셔서 이제 슬슬 이제 블록도 짜시고 그 다음에 결의안도 작성 시작하시면 될 것 같습니다. 지금 보내드린 그 링크로 들어가셔서 하시면 될 것 같고요. 네, 그러면 카메라는 여기서 펴주셔야 하는 거 잊지 말고 가서 하시면 될 것 같습니다. 네, 이동해 주세요. Delegates, sorry to interrupt. Within the chair's discretion, we would like to extend the unmoderated caucus session to 4:40, which is the end of the session 2, so that we can have a break right after the unmoderated caucus. Thank you. For the presses who have just entered now, please change the names into press and something. And yes, delegate chair will type it after this. Please wait for a second. Yes, delegates, you have been invited into the breakout room. If you have been invited, you can move into that breakout room, and then please proceed with your interview. Thank you.